presented today, and we are debating, should euthanasia be legalised in the UK? And we've got a great panel to talk about this. So we have, on my right, we have Bobby Peach and Ken Blake, and on my left we have Sarah Gilkinson and Sophie Butler. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves first. So Sarah, if you'd like to start.
Hello, my name is Sarah Gilkinson and I live here in Nottingham.
Hi, I'm Sophie Butler and I live in Nottingham.
I'm Ken Blake. I am retired and live in Loughborough, Leicestershire.
I'm Bobby Peach, also retired and also live in Loughborough.
So the topic for today's debate is, should euthanasia be legalised in the UK? Euthanasia is obviously a very sensitive subject. And currently both active euthanasia and assisted suicide are illegal under English law. So should it be right that a person is sent to prison just for putting someone else out of their misery? So I'm going to throw the question out to the floor. First of all, on the against euthanasia side.
I would go against euthanasia because there's a natural process of birth and death which exists in the universe, and euthanasia interferes with that. It's cutting on a natural process. The doctors swear something called a Hippocratic Oath, and part of that says, this is a modern version, most especially I must tread with care in matters of life and death. If it is given to me to save a life, all thanks. But it may also be within my power to take a life. This awesome responsibility must be faced with great humbleness and awareness of my own frailty. Above all, I must not play God. And to legalise euthanasia opens the door to people playing God with people's lives.
Thank you very much. I'll throw it over to this side.
The way I'd respond to that, firstly, is in response to the natural process argument. I think there's a lot of things in life that aren't natural. For example, medicine. So if people are ill, they use medicine to make themselves feel better. You know, if somebody's got, for example, I know in a lot of cases where euthanasia is considered, it's when people have got terminal illnesses and they're on medicine to push themselves through, but sometimes the medicine isn't, sufficient and they're still suffering quite a lot. In regards to the religious argument and playing God, if not everyone's Christian, not everyone's religious, so that might not apply to them because of, they might be atheist or their opinions might not kind of echo that.
I'd like to say that until such times as a foolproof system, method of deciding whether a person can be euthanized or not, until something legal and totally foolproof to stop the greedy relatives getting their hands on money that they wouldn't otherwise get their hands on, and things of that nature, then I think it's not to be considered.
Unfortunately, as soon as you give birth to your child and that child is born, okay, you immediately belong to the state. Okay, they have more of a say in your life and your choices than what parents do have, and also family. I do feel that pharmaceutical companies, there's always money in this kind of subject in medicine. Pharmaceuticals are one of the biggest money-making corporations in the world, and I think that has big pots paying it as well. If I'm honest, and the government will say, okay, then if people, we have the right to end people's lives, and the pharmaceutical companies are not going to make any money, and the government rely on profits from pharmaceutical companies. So that's also an issue you have to look at as well.
Go back on the religious argument. Most world religions, probably all world religions, place great value on human life and preserving life and valuing life, which is part of the natural process of the universe. People are born, people die. It's a whole natural process, and life should be valued, respected and upheld as far as possible.
I cannot accept the argument that we're going to bump people off merely to boost the profits of pharmaceutical companies so they pay more tax to the government.
I think coming back to the religious thing as well, it's not, I mean, I completely respect anybody's religious, view, no matter how different it is from my own, because I'm atheist, but I completely appreciate the fact that if that's your religion, that's what you believe, so it would make sense that your opinions are grounded in that religion. But I have a fundamental issue with the fact that that religious view should affect everyone else, because it can't represent everyone, surely.
I think allowing euthanasia can open doors, and that can be very dangerous. Where do you stop?
Okay, before we get further into this is some really good stuff, guys. We are going to look at a couple of clips now that's going to inform us a little bit more on the pro and the con side. Particularly, though, I do want to stay with religion as well, because I think that there are issues there. Let's have a look.
I believe under the right circumstances and with the right guidelines that it should be legal. People with terminal illnesses and that are suffering should, I think, have that choice. If they can make that choice, they should be able to. But I think there should be very, very strict guidelines involved to stop it getting into the wrong hands. But I think, yes, my opinion is it should be legal.
I think that euthanasia should be legalised. I think if somebody is in a state of mind where they are willing to take their own life, they need to seek medical attention in terms of their mental health, not taking their own life. I think it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Coming back then, so we've heard both sides of the argument just there. When we were just talking about playing God, now that can also be interpreted, obviously not religiously, just in terms of taking control over something that maybe we're not supposed to take control over. Would you agree? So when it comes to, obviously, doctors, I think that there are, obviously doctors do have religious views, but maybe because people interpret religion in different ways, it can be possible for a doctor maybe to still be Christian and do it. Do you think that religion does hold such a strict weight when it comes to the negative side of euthanasia and not doing it?
I think all it comes down to is people's personal beliefs. So if you're religious, like I said, your religion is going to reflect a lot of where you stand morally on things. So I just think that really allowing euthanasia is really about giving people the choice. It's not saying that everyone's going to start dropping like flies. Sorry, that's a bit of a harsh way of putting it, but it's more about giving those families that feel it would be beneficial for them the option. But no, it's not something that's going to be enforced on people. I think that's the thing. If your religious beliefs don't support euthanasia, you don't have to involve yourself within it. But those people who want to engage with it and use it, then the option's there. It's really giving people the freedom and the choice.
What would you say to, say, for example, if somebody was terminally ill and they knew it was just going to get worse? What about in the case of that, as opposed to just in the case of your quality of life is going to deteriorate, you are already being given this amount of time left?
That's a difficult one, because there are instances, recorded instances, where people have been in that state with no hope, terminally ill, doctors about to switch off machines or terminate life. They've waited a bit, and sometimes things have happened. The doctors can't explain, I tend to use the word miracles, but something unexplainable happens and that person can recover. There are documented cases of that, quite a lot of them. So there is no hope until the final brain death has gone, has happened.
Do you think so say it was legalised, what kind of restrictions do you think should be put in place so that not obviously just anyone can
Okay, well, after going through it myself and watching somebody die, a father of mine, watching him die, knowing, and they're on the pathway of dying, they've already gone to a special place, into a hospice to die, they'd have gone through a lot of series of examinations anyway, and not just seeing one doctor, lots and lots of opinions, okay? So that's why there should be some rigorous investigations into the health of that particular patient, from different kinds of medical backgrounds as well. So I think if you have had say a highly qualified doctor and a specialist doctor in that field, okay, and they're both saying that he's going to die, it's not going to get any better, then I think you have to trust their medical opinion. We trust their medical opinion with the diagnosis. So we should trust their medical opinion when it comes to the ending in the life as well.
Do you think it's wrong, so if it were legalised, and obviously say it was being conducted through the NHS in this country, then people who are paying their tax are essentially, even if they don't believe it, are paying for it and supporting it? Is there a moral issue there?
I mean, taxes cover a lot of bases. I mean, obviously, the reason that we can have a free and also affordable healthcare system is because we're being taxed. So really it's just about giving people the option, really, when it comes down to tax. You know, it's the way that we can fund it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think it would be better to fund it publicly rather than getting into the territory of having it privately funded. I think that would be more alarming.
Why would it be more alarming?
Because it puts the power of the way the system's run into businesses, which aren't always the most morally.
What do you think about the system in Switzerland at Dignitas? What do you think about? Do you think that is a good system that is in place right now? Obviously, you like it on the NHS, but do you think that having that option there is a good thing?
I think it's a good thing that it exists. I think it's a shame that people are having to travel to Switzerland. My major issue with this is that not everyone can afford to travel to Switzerland. So firstly, you're already making an issue of the fact that people with a certain amount of wealth can afford the luxury, if you want to call it that, of involving themselves with euthanasia. Then you've also got the issue of, if somebody can afford to go, can they afford to take all their family? They're also removed from being in a familiar and comforting environment, having the real choice of where they want to die, which is what all this is about. It's all about choice and having the freedom to die in a respectful way, in a comfortable way, with people that you love, rather than feeling like you have to keep suffering, which tends to be, I think, really the main argument for it, is people who are suffering and they want to, leave peacefully. And I think it removes them from that comfortable environment, so it makes it quite stressful. It reminds me of the issue in Ireland where people are having to travel to the UK to have abortions and they have to go on their own. It can be very stressful and they've not got family with them. And the whole point of it is it's making it a better experience for them, really.
Coming over to you guys, I can't imagine we are in support of Dignitas, but what do we think about it?
Swiss have always done things differently. I mean, they can't even make cheese properly without a load of holes in it.
Yeah.
Dignitas is different, yeah.
my mother died of cancer. And she died at home and we were with her. She died naturally, she died peacefully, and it was a great privilege to be with her at the end. She wasn't killed, she wasn't euthanasied, she just died naturally in the end. She was unconscious for the last 2 hours. But we were there with her, in her own home, and that was good. My father, on the other hand, had a heart attack and died quite suddenly. So these were natural processes happened, with no intervention from switching off machines or killing people. They just happened naturally and beautifully, in a sense.
What do you think about, say, switching off machines? Say, for example, in the case of your mother, or in the case of anyone who was in hospital and they'd said, okay, there's nothing more we can do. The only thing we can do at this stage is make them comfortable. Yeah. And quite often families are confronted with the question, would you like us to switch it off? Would you like us to take that step now? Or do you want to wait it out? Do you think that is a choice families should not be faced with?
They shouldn't be faced with it, because it should be the question faced by the individual concerned. Who should make that decision?
But if that person can't communicate that, if, for example, they were unconscious, not able to speak.
Well, in that case, all I can say is it should have been sorted out before he got to the point where he was comatose.
So I do not resuscitate that kind of thing.
I can argue with that. When my father was taken ill with cancer, he was diagnosed with dementia. And when he went in for his final visits, rushed into hospital, it's his choice when he was sound at mind to do not resuscitate. Okay, when he got rushed into hospital, because he was diagnosed with dementia, that do not resuscitate was not allowed. They wouldn't trust him, but because his mind wasn't sound bound, they wouldn't trust him again, so they sent him home again. Sent him back to his nursing care. So that's not always the case. It depends if you're